Hey everyone, Anarch here, and this is another episode of Anarch Abridged. This time, we're going to be asking sort of one of the basic questions of political theory, and that is, what is capitalism? So, if that question interests you, then you should stick around after the intro, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. So this question of what is capitalism is sort of at the center of a lot of modern contention. And that's for good reason, because we live in a capitalist society. And I obviously don't mean just here in the United States. Pretty much everywhere on the planet is now capitalist. And I know some of you are probably disagreeing, contending that there are socialist countries and so on. I disagree, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what capitalism is. And starting with that, I'd like to at least just address the common misconception by those who tend to call themselves capitalists. And that is that capitalism is just the free market. It is just trades wherein we all try to maximize the utility at every trade. And as we all maximize the utility of our trades through, non-zero sum exchanges, we create more and more value in society. We create more and more profits in that process. And many apologists of capitalism will then say, well, that process goes really far back. That goes as far back as humans go and as far back as trade goes. And so they argue capitalism has always been here. What we call capitalism today is just finally capitalism let to develop to a higher potential, and that it could only develop to an even higher potential through the weakening of the state or the lowering of regulations and the allowance of all of these industries to seek their maximum profit. This leads then to a lot of capitalists seeing the entire capitalist system as fueled by a sort of rational self-interest. And that if that rational self-interest can be sought by every person within the market, that we will then therefore have a more prosperous society. Suffice to say, I disagree with this characterization. I am going to present two alternative ways of looking at what capitalism is. The first, I think, is the more popular way among the left to look at how capitalism functions and what its fundamental features are. And that is to say that capitalism is a system wherein there is an owning class and there is a working class. The owning class gains all of their income by way of their ownership of means that they own, say factories or tools, equipment that people might need in order to produce things. The owning class gains their income by way of their ownership of those things, whereas the laboring class or the working class gains their income by way of selling their labor as a wage in exchange for a wage. So the most common way that leftists might define capitalism is a system wherein the worker only owns their labor and sells it in exchange for a wage, where the capitalist is the private owner of the means of production. And this way is actually a very common way of understanding what capitalism is on the left. It does not exactly root to Karl Marx. I would say it kind of more accurately roots to Proudhon, and even had some of its roots back in Smith and Ricardo and so on. But it was popularized by Karl Marx. And this is the basis of what is called the labor theory of value. So the labor theory of value is that all value is actually created by labor. And the worker is the actual originator of all value in society. And the capitalist merely makes all of their money, they make their profits by way of exploiting the labor, by way of paying them a wage that is less than the value of the labor that they put into the enterprise. And that is the process that drives profit accumulation. And I should say that's not only a popular view to Marx, that's a popular view just broadly among the left. And I just want to say, not necessarily weighing in myself, but I think there is a lot of truth to that conception, even though I think that the second way is the way I tend to look at capitalism. And that is, capitalism is a system of power. It is a system wherein power is distributed and redistributed by way of those who own private institutions. They own corporations. They own, homes and land and property. It is a system wherein those people are able to organize and reorganize society to their whims. And all capital really is, all the accumulation of capital really is their ability to predict future gains within that changing landscape of power and how they will benefit from those future gains when the landscape of power changes. This is, I would say, a more anarchistic way of looking at capitalism, but it's more specifically the theory of two theorists named Bickler and Nitzan. This is the conception called capital as power. And that is to say, capital is not a measurement of labor. It's not a measurement of utility. It's a measurement of the ability to organize and reorganize the rest of the world. And it arises from the capitalist's ability to predict future expansions of the power of assets they already own. So that might sound kind of dense, but what I want to get across is that it is a system wherein those who have wealth are simply able to control the rest of society. And this doesn't stop at the economy. It pretty much doesn't stop anywhere. So one of the big things that makes this third conception different from the previous two is that in the previous two, there's some conception that there's this sort of separation between the economy and the state. In the utility version or the first version, the capitalist conception, there's this idea that the state should stay out of the economy's business because the economy is the place where rational self-interest is being carried out, and the state just needs to stay out of it. In the second conception, the state is still seen as separate, but it's conceived that the state might be a sort of check on capital. The state might be able to successfully regulate capital in a way which is beneficial. Whereas in the third conception, it's just understood that field of power doesn't really end anywhere, that the state is fully absorbed within the field of power. The state and capital act together in order to maintain the structure of power within society. And furthermore, that the state is a sort of lackey of the economy, and the economy sort of offloads its need to do violence to the state. So they are a unified entity, even if they don't conceive themselves as such. The flows of power move very seamlessly, and they move in the benefit of the owners of capital. What one will notice is that whichever of these last two that you choose, the exploitation of the laborers, the mass accumulation of wealth and profit by those who already own all of the power or wealth in society, however you want to view it, those who own all of the wealth in society have absolute control, and the laborers are exploited by those who have that power to begin with. They have that default ability to distort the way that everything functions in society. And in both of these, we can see that there is utility in the workers withholding their labor from that, source of capital or those accumulators of wealth. This gives logic, of course, to the strike or the union in a historical sense. But I hope that these three conceptions of capitalism are sort of helpful to get you started on thinking about the answer to the question, what is capitalism? I am not going to go in as deep as I usually do in other videos. I'm going to keep this one short and consider this an experiment of sorts. If you enjoyed the direction I went with this video, keeping it a little more brief, trying to keep it a little more introductory perhaps, go down there and click like. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about it. If you agree or disagree with my characterizations here, anything you want to add, any problems you had, of course, go leave a comment. Tell me what you think about that. Lastly, I want to say, if you liked this video and you'd like to see more videos like this one, or if this is like your third or fourth time being recommended a video by me by the algorithm, you should just click subscribe. I make content like this all the time. You can consistently expect me to keep releasing videos about political theory and the landscape of politics, and especially anarchist theory and libertarian socialism more broadly. That is the thrust of this channel. If you have been coming back, if this is, you've kept coming back to these videos over and over and over, if you find these to be a valuable resource, if you feel like you're being educated, if you feel like this is a food for thought, you should go over to my Patreon at patreon.com/anarch, which is ANARK. The last thing I want to say is, for those of you who've stuck around, is that I am actually nearing completion on the next video essay that I am producing. I know some of you have gotten to this channel just because I've been doing these Anarch Abridged videos, but this is actually not what the channel got known for. I actually got known for these very long and very in-depth video essays, sometimes an hour, 2 hours long. And if you haven't watched any of those, you should go over and take a look at some of those now. I put a huge amount of work into these. They take months. Some of these are even taking close to a year to finish. They are enormous, endeavors. I'm putting a lot of my time and effort into these. The next one that I've been producing now for close to a year already is coming near to its completion, and that is part 3 of A Modern Anarchism. So if you're trying to prepare yourself for that video essay releasing, you should go watch A Modern Anarchism Part 1, which is titled Anarchist Analysis, and A Modern Anarchism Part 2, which is titled Anarchy. And this third one is A Modern Anarchism Part 3, Revolution, which is on theory of revolution. So that one will be out very soon. And I appreciate you all watching. I think that's everything I wanted to say here today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you next week.